Welcome to IRAQI Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today's update centers on a key political development in Iraq that has direct implications for economic stability and, by extension, for those who follow the Iraqi dinar. The main concern continues to revolve around the election process and, more specifically, the seating of the president and the formation of the next government, including the appointment of the prime minister. A recent statement attributed to a member of the Al-Azam political bloc suggests that former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki may withdraw his candidacy in the coming days, and that political leaders must avoid confrontation during this sensitive period. To understand what this means for the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's broader economic outlook, we need to approach the situation with careful analysis rather than emotion. Political transitions in Iraq have historically had a measurable impact on investor confidence, budget execution, and currency stability. The current delay in finalizing the presidency and prime ministerial appointment creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the most significant variables in financial markets. Nouri al-Maliki is a well-known political figure in Iraq. He previously served as prime minister and remains influential within certain political alliances. However, his potential return to the premiership has been controversial domestically and internationally. Reports have suggested that if he were to remain the nominee, Iraq could face heightened political tension and possibly increased international pressure. The mention of potential sanctions and crisis scenarios tied to his continued candidacy adds another layer of complexity. It is important to clarify that sanctions discussions in political commentary do not automatically translate into immediate economic penalties. However, even the perception of possible international restrictions can affect investor behavior, foreign direct investment decisions, and diplomatic relations. For a country like Iraq, which relies heavily on oil exports and international financial networks, maintaining stable relations with global institutions and partners is essential. If Maliki were to withdraw, as some political figures are indicating, that could reduce tensions among competing blocs and potentially accelerate the formation of a government. For the Iraqi dinar, government formation is not just a symbolic milestone. It is a structural requirement for moving forward with economic reforms, approving budgets, implementing monetary policy coordination, and engaging confidently with international partners such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The delay in seating the president and prime minister effectively slows down the legislative and executive processes. Without a fully empowered government, passing key economic reforms becomes more difficult. Iraq has ongoing needs in areas such as banking modernization, anti-corruption enforcement, public sector salary management, and infrastructure investment. These are not short-term political talking points, they are long-term economic pillars. For Iraqi dinar followers, one of the most common questions is whether political instability directly triggers sudden currency revaluations or dramatic exchange rate changes. Historically, currency strength is linked to macroeconomic fundamentals, foreign reserves, trade balances, inflation control, and fiscal discipline. Political stability supports these fundamentals by creating a predictable policy environment. If Maliki withdraws and a consensus candidate emerges, the immediate effect could be a calming of political tensions. Markets generally respond positively to reduced uncertainty. That does not necessarily mean an immediate change in the exchange rate of the dinar, but it can improve the conditions under which monetary authorities operate. The Central Bank of Iraq operates with a mandate to maintain price stability and manage the exchange rate regime. Political deadlock complicates coordination between fiscal and monetary authorities. For example, the federal budget requires legislative approval and executive implementation. If leadership positions remain unresolved, budget allocations can be delayed, affecting government spending, public salaries, and development projects. These factors influence liquidity in the domestic market and, indirectly, currency demand. Let's examine the short-term implications first. In the immediate term, headlines about possible withdrawal and calls to avoid confrontation suggest that political actors are aware of the risk associated with prolonged conflict. If negotiations move toward compromise, we could see a stabilization of political rhetoric. That alone can support confidence in the banking sector and reduce capital flight concerns. However, if the withdrawal does not occur and tensions escalate, short-term volatility could increase. This might not necessarily manifest as a dramatic exchange rate shift, given Iraq's managed currency system, but it could show up in parallel market pressures, temporary liquidity challenges, or delayed investment decisions. It is also essential to consider Iraq's oil revenue position. Oil exports remain the backbone of government income. As long as global oil demand remains relatively stable and export volumes are maintained, Iraq continues to generate foreign currency inflows. These inflows bolster the country's foreign reserves, which are a critical support mechanism for the dinar. Political disputes can create risk, but strong reserves provide a buffer. The long-term implications are even more significant. A stable government formation opens the door to structural reforms. Iraq has been working on diversifying its economy beyond oil, strengthening its private sector, and modernizing its financial system. International partnerships depend heavily on political continuity and credibility. If Iraq can demonstrate a peaceful and orderly transition of leadership, it enhances its reputation in global markets. For IRAQI dinar followers, it is important to separate political drama from economic reality. Currency valuation does not hinge on a single political figure alone. It depends on institutional strength. If Maliki withdraws and a new prime minister is seated with broad support, that could be interpreted as a positive sign for institutional functionality. Institutions matter more than personalities when it comes to long-term currency stability. Another dimension to consider is regional diplomacy. Iraq's geopolitical position places it between major regional powers. Political leadership influences foreign policy direction. If there is concern among international stakeholders about a particular candidate, that concern can translate into cautious economic engagement. Conversely, a candidate perceived as consensus-driven may improve diplomatic channels and reduce the risk premium associated with investing in Iraq. The mention of avoiding confrontation is particularly relevant. Political confrontation in Iraq's history has sometimes led to protests, disruptions, and security concerns. Security stability is a foundational element for economic development. Businesses require safe operating environments. Foreign companies evaluating contracts in energy, construction, or telecommunications consider political risk as a primary factor. In analyzing what this means for the dinar, we must look at the central bank's policy tools. The bank manages the official exchange rate and intervenes through currency auctions and other mechanisms. As long as foreign reserves remain adequate and oil revenues continue to flow, the bank has the capacity to manage short-term fluctuations. Political clarity strengthens that capacity by reducing speculative pressure. For viewers who follow the dinar closely, it is understandable to watch political developments with anticipation. However, responsible analysis requires acknowledging that sustainable currency appreciation is typically gradual and supported by measurable improvements in GDP growth, diversification, inflation control, and fiscal management. If government formation proceeds smoothly after a potential withdrawal, Iraq may move more quickly to finalize pending legislation, including budget adjustments and investment laws. These measures can improve the business climate. Over time, a stronger business climate attracts capital, increases employment, and enhances productivity. That is the type of environment that supports a stable or gradually strengthening currency. On the other hand, prolonged uncertainty can delay reforms. Delays can impact infrastructure projects, public service delivery, and economic diversification efforts. That, in turn, may slow progress in strengthening the domestic currency's purchasing power. It is not about sudden dramatic changes. It is about steady progress or stagnation. It is also worth noting that Iraq has been working to modernize its banking system, enhance compliance with international financial standards, and combat illicit financial flows. Political leadership plays a role in supporting or hindering these initiatives. International banking relationships depend on compliance and transparency. Any perception of instability can complicate correspondent banking relationships, which are vital for international trade settlements. For short-term traders or observers, headlines about possible withdrawal may create moments of optimism. However, prudent observers should wait for confirmed developments rather than react to speculation. Official announcements, parliamentary votes, and constitutional procedures are what ultimately shape policy direction. In the broader context, Iraq's economic potential remains substantial. The country holds significant natural resources, a young population, and strategic trade routes. Realizing that potential requires political cohesion, a peaceful resolution to leadership disputes would send a strong signal domestically and internationally. As we look ahead, the key milestones to monitor include confirmation of any withdrawal, formal nomination of a consensus prime ministerial candidate, the seating of the president, and the presentation and approval of a comprehensive government program. Each of these steps reduces uncertainty and strengthens institutional credibility. For Iraqi dinar followers, the responsible takeaway is this: political stability supports economic reform, and economic reform supports currency stability. The process is interconnected, but it is not instantaneous. Avoiding confrontation, as political figures are urging, is economically beneficial. Compromise and constitutional adherence foster confidence. In conclusion, the possibility that Nouri al-Maliki may withdraw his candidacy introduces a potentially stabilizing development in Iraq's political landscape. Whether that withdrawal materializes and how political blocs respond will shape the short-term atmosphere. The long-term outlook for the Iraqi dinar depends less on individual personalities and more on the strength of institutions, fiscal discipline, foreign reserves, and reform implementation. We will continue to monitor verified developments closely and provide balanced, factual analysis. If you value responsible coverage that avoids speculation and focuses on economic fundamentals, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video to stay updated. Remember, this content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Always conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.